We do want to lead off the show this week with heartfelt condolences, love, and just thoughts and positive vibes, prayers, whatever terminology you may use, um, to our homies and friends in Maryland, in the Baltimore area, and Maryland just as a whole, with the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsing as it got hit by that giant ship earlier in the week. And I woke up to the family group text. It's either going to be something lighthearted or something like earth shattering when it's in that. And it's just a video of it happening, and I was like, there's no way this is real, because the video just looked like it was straight out of a movie and just did not seem humanly possible. Maryland has a huge, huge connection to this podcast, obviously, with just the sport of lacrosse as a whole. But we love, our listeners in Maryland. We have a ton of friends from the Maryland area. Our news that you'll hear later in the show with Chase, he's a Maryland native. So we want to send our deepest condolences and love to everybody in Maryland, the Baltimore area. Um, you know, I can't even imagine like the feeling that comes over your body when you see that, and the immediate thought of loved ones, and you know the six workers on the bridge who have unfortunately been presumed dead. Our love to those families, um, in such a tragic time. But we wanted to lead off the show with just sending love to everyone in Maryland.
Yeah, I mean, it was shocking seeing the videos and everything, but that was kind of like the first thing I thought of was like, how many people do we know and care about were affected by that? Just, that's separations of degree, which affects us, even if it's just, a long lost cousin that they haven't talked to in forever, or it was somebody that they saw at work every day, or somebody they played lacrosse with years ago. Like that, even though it was a small number of people who are affected by this, whether it was injured, was near the scene, is still missing. Maybe that we know someone, or someone that we know knows someone who is on the vessel, which they're not going to be able to move for weeks until all the debris and such is cleaned up as well. This affects a lot of things that are going on. An entire community is affected, one that is extremely tied into the game of lacrosse. I couldn't imagine. I can't imagine trying to play a game after this. Within this couple of weeks, there's going to be a ton of emotion surrounding the area in the game. So definitely just wanted to reach out, let everybody know we're here for them. Respects to everyone who has been working on the bridge or was working at the time. First responders, they did an amazing job to get out there and go right away. Coast Guard had pretty much 48 hours of searching that they could do before things started to get even more dangerous than they already were. There's just so much things that surround this, and just a freak accident. It kind of just makes you stop and appreciate everything you have going on. Like, I was just talking to someone yesterday, and they were like, like, you deserve so many things you're doing and have coming, because like you appreciate it yourself. Like, you understand everybody doesn't get to have the experiences or do the things that you get to do. So I think that, means that you deserve it more. And it's just like, yeah, it could all be gone in a matter of literally seconds. And I could never do any of it again, or I could have never even been here. We've talked 1,000 times about my ride back home from Boston and how I literally almost died. And so it's just like these things happen all the time, and they're tied in so much. But part of that is what makes lacrosse so great, is seeing how many people from the lacrosse world are already in the Baltimore area that are already reaching out, telling people, if you need anything, let me know. And they're talking about how much it's affected them. And then you just look at the entirety of the lacrosse community and how they've rallied around this and said their words of encouragement, or, let people know they're there, and all those things. That's what has always drawn me to lacrosse, is how communified it is. Everything matters to everyone. When it deals with one person in the lacrosse world, or it deals with the whole team, the entire community is invested in it.
Yeah, and obviously with the community initiative with the PLL, the Maryland Whipsnakes are now a team, and a team we've followed obviously when they were just Whipsnakes Lacrosse Club, but they've always had that connection to Maryland, and want to send love to just the Maryland community as a whole. And like I said, Maryland and Baltimore have a huge place in this podcast heart for a number of reasons. So big ups and big love to Maryland. And I think our guy Mike Rabel said it best. If there's anything he knows about Marylanders, they'll build back and be stronger from this. So sending love to all of our Maryland listeners and followers, thinking about you guys. And like MR said, you guys will be back and building back stronger from this sooner than you think.
Yeah, I think they're a strong community, and I think it's going to weigh them down and kind of hamper them for a few moments, but they're going to be right back rocking.
If there's anything I've learned from cities like Baltimore, Philly, I'm sure you could say this about Detroit too, Deej, like those blue collar, gritty type of cities, when adversity strikes, the community rallies and they come back even bigger and better than ever. And I know Maryland is going to be one of those opportunities for them. So big love to Maryland, and let's get into the show. What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
What is going on, OTB Nation? Welcome into episode number 316, wide of the award-nominated, wide, honorably mentioned, wide, number 9 NCAA ranked, wide, and of course viewable on YouTube, wide, Outside the Box podcast, the official lacrosse podcast on the Underground Sports Philadelphia podcast network. It's KB and Deej coming at you. We got a lot to get into from the NLL, the PLL, the college game, and our own personal news. But before we get into all of that, make sure you guys are following us on the socials at OTB LaxPod, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Facebook.com/OTB LaxPod. You can follow Deej on Twitter at SCS_next great. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Subscribe to the Mother in Pod on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts in audio form. Bump those numbies on Apple and Spotify, though. Let's crank those numbers up a gajillion. Let's keep the audio listeners going. Seen some more Spotify followers coming through recently. Let's keep that going and keep subscribing, because the more you subscribe on audio, the more we're able to do, and we're able to create more dope content with and for you guys. So keep subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Leave a 5-star review. And of course, subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia. That's where you get full video episodes of this show every week, full video episodes of every show on our network, live streams, wide, shorts, wide, clips, original video content, wide, all on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia. We're at 750 subscribers. We've been on a little bit of a lull in the subscribers recently. Let's get OTB Nation to come through. We need 250 more, and then the YouTube channel really starts cooking, and we can start hitting the algorithm more once we hit that 1K subscriber mark. And of course, subscribe to the Outside the Box podcast YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/@OTB LaxPod. Posting some clips. All of our Champ Series interviews are over on that channel, and we're going to be using that channel a bunch this summer when we vlog, when we're going on the road, a whole bunch of stuff, so don't miss out on that as well. Subscribe to both channels, youtube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia and @OTB LaxPod. And of course, get your merch. PHI Apparel Company is the place to do it. They'll have you styling and profiling no matter what season of lacrosse it is for you, because they've got the official Outside the Box podcast merch available exclusively at phiapparel.co. If you want to stand out in the crowd, if you're a Philly sports fan as well, from the Eagles, the Phillies, the Flyers, the Sixers, the Union, and of course, your favorite Underground Sports Philadelphia podcast, go to phiapparel.co so you can stand out in the crowd, fill up your cart, get everything you need for whatever season it may be, whatever your favorite podcast is. Of course, OTB being in there as well. And when you go to checkout, use code UNDERGROUND for 10% off your merch orders. Most effective and direct way to support everything we're doing here at OTB and Underground Sports Philadelphia as a whole. So go get your merch, phiapparel.co, code UNDERGROUND, 10% off your merch orders. Deej, what's popping, bro?
Bro, this weekend was great. Got to watch a ton of sports. March Madness is doing its thing. The women's side has also been amazing. And then there's just been great lacrosse on all weekend. Tons of great games in OT in both college and pro. And then also just debuted today, as we're recording on Wednesday, the Izzy Skane through X. I saw it on ESPN during the Duke game. Fantastic. When that comes out on YouTube, make sure you watch it. She is just phenomenal. That was just a lot of fun to watch, and I'm just excited for lacrosse to continue to ramp up.
Is this the official call out for Izzy to come on the pod?
Yeah.
Bang.
Yeah. And if she wanted to make it easy, she's playing in a city I have a second residency in, so I'll just pull up.
Pull up. But that'd be dope. I'd love to have her on the show.
I'm excited for one to start branching into the women's game a little bit more, and two, I really wish our playoffs, the NCAA tournament, was a little more expanded. Like 32 teams would be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that then adds a time crunch and changes things, but I think it could be done.
That's what I say to those haters.
I think most teams can play with 2 days of rest, 1 or 2 days of rest. Let's start shortening how much rest is in between games and kind of have more games and bigger tournament. Like, there's so much exciting lacrosse that could be going on in that time of the year, and it's just not.
And at the end of the day, what does the NCAA always want when it all breaks down?
Money, and that's going to bring in more money. Y'all. That's going to bring in more money.
I agree with you. We've been talking about that since forever, talking about how you need to have more parallels between the college and the pro game. You need to have more parallels to the things that work in college sports. March Madness works extremely well. You see the college football playoff expanding. We'll see how that works, in an expanded format. I think it'll be better for the sport as a whole. College lacrosse should also get on the bandwagon of expanding, because I think it makes for more parity in the sport. It makes for more viewership of the sport, and then it brings more eyeballs on both ends of the spectrum to it. And especially with ESPN being the overarching domain of everything lacrosse now, it just makes too much sense for it to not be a thing for them to cooperate and work on potentially with the NCAA. So yeah, we need that expansion ASAP. Tej, we have a couple things to lead off the show with here. Should we start with our own expansion?
We're on the topic.
The boys have an announcement. You saw the social media announcement earlier this week. We have an intern. We broke the internet. As our boy posted, it's like the Kobe and Shaq highlight reel. It's like Thanos collecting Infinity Stones. We are out here assembling a squad. And the man, the myth, the legend, my guy, Chase, the PLL Pipeline, is coming to OTB. Let's go, bro.
We are now outside the pipeline. We are now outside the pipeline. It's just, this is just going to take us to the next level, man. He's already doing so many great things with design and just being a personality, being in the space, and he knows so much. Like I'm excited just to see where OTB is going to go now that we have help. Now that we have somebody coming into the fold, we can only get better. I don't see us getting worse at any point, and then bringing in a guy like Chase is just over the top moon. Like, oh, that's all I had to say about it. I was like, this is a championship level move. We go home with a trophy, or we don't go home at all.
Facts. And just so everyone's aware, the name is not changing. It's still OTB. The PLL Pipeline is just outside the box. It's a little outside the box. We thought a little outside the box on this one. It's funny. I think I talk about it with Chase because you'll hear from Chase on this episode. As we did a little interview and a little lead up to him joining the pod. Deej and I were talking about this for weeks on how to properly approach Chase, because Chase is a credentialed media member with the PLL. Chase does this on his own and is very talented at doing it. But when we were both like, Chase is still in college, like could potentially need like college credits for an internship, whatever it may be. And Chase knows us. Chase is a listener of the pod. And we've gotten to know Chase over the last couple of years just from being at weekends and everything. And he's one of the coolest humans out there. And we got a DM from Chase when we were getting ready to approach him about all of this, saying, hey, I was catching up on episodes and heard about the intern search and everything. And it was just a no-brainer. Like, we didn't even put out a formal internship like search because Chase was our number one recruit before we even curated a list of recruits. And that's not to say we're not looking for more recruits, because we are always open to services.
He was number one on the list of one.
He was number one on the list of one. But it is awesome to know that, like, we're going to have his brain available to us. He's going to be popping up on shows when his schedule allows him to. You already know PLL weekends are going to go absolutely stupid with the boys. Deej, Maryland weekend is about to go crazy.
Jimmy Seafood, we need a table for 3.
We need a table for 4. CFO Margie's coming through too.
Uh-oh.
Bing bong.
The whole OTB crew is there.
It's a wrap. But yeah, the PLL Pipeline, also for everybody out there, I think I mentioned this too. I recorded with Chase last week, so it's your boy's also been dealing with food poisoning and is coming to his senses as we record this on Wednesday. So battling through it, and the brain fog is starting to eliminate. But I think I brought this up. PLL Pipeline's not going anywhere. It's just kind of like, quote unquote, powered by OTB. Chase is still going to be doing his thing. We're just going to promote the PLL Pipeline that much more, utilize his social posts that much more. We're going to collaborate on social post ideas. He's going to help us with research. He's going to pop up on the pod from time to time, like I mentioned, when his schedule allows, being that he's still in school. He commentates for the women's game at Elon, which is dope, and he's going to bring that mindset into everything. And I'm just pumped, man, like to be able to bring on such a high caliber lacrosse brain, but another high caliber human to the show too, is just super fun. I'm super pumped. And like I said, this also does not mean we're not still looking for more intern help. We may be putting out a formal application soon for that, but big ups to the boy Chase and the PLL Pipeline, officially part of OTB.
Raise the roof, because what?
What? It's fitting that it's on episode 316 too. What?
Yeah, I'm hyped for this, though. I think both OTB and PLL Pipeline take huge jumps from this. Like, there's only advantages with this. I don't really see any disadvantages.
And I said, with Chase, like, he's had players follow the PLL Pipeline when he's posting news and everything, where we have players that obviously the boys, the homies, if there's any cross, right there, it's right there for us to like have Chase's followers come on the pod, utilize our connections for Chase to help grow his brand and everything. There's so much like cross-pollination there. That's the word I was looking for. To enhance both of us. And it's going to be like he was listing off some guys that like they'd be dreams for us to have on the show. It'd be a ton of fun for us to chat with. So who knows? And you know, his number one first player to follow him is also a friend of the program, Cade Van Splashhorst. So we have a common thread there. But we got a ton of stuff coming with Chase and the PLL Pipeline. So be sure to follow the PLL Pipeline on Instagram and Twitter. Boost those numbies up. Follow us. We're 1 follower away, Deej, on Instagram now after the announcement from 500. What?
Okay.
Let's go. Keep it coming. We're in an Instagram race, too, because the main account just hit 1,200. Let's go. F1 hit 1K. They're in the 1K stratosphere, and they're slowly creeping up on main pod. We're next in line.
Slowly?
Quickly, but I'm trying to
make yourself feel good about it.
I feel like the SpongeBob meme when Sandy's running after SpongeBob and Patrick.
Yeah, the rope is twirling, buddy.
Yeah. Mind you, this is all good for us. This is a great thing for us.
Fantastic.
But we got some catching up to do on the IG game, which we've been much more attentive to, and I know we have a different audience on Instagram than we do on Twitter, and there's a lot of cross-pollination there as well. But I talked about it with Chase too. Lacrosse Instagram is a very different thing than Lacrosse Twitter.
Yeah. Lacrosse Twitter's unhinged and almost toxic. But like I can't it's that kind of toxic that I can't go without. Yeah. Like I gotta get on Lax Twitter at least once a day.
I need my
just
daily
to see
hit.
what's swirling out there. Yeah. I definitely need my little fix for the day. At least.
Well, welcome aboard, Chase. You'll hear from Chase after our NLL segment. But Deej, let's get into the NLL segment. Recap week 17, a wild week in the National Lacrosse League. As it went a little something like this. Panther City in overtime takes down Buffalo 12-11. Your Calgary Roughnecks defeat the Albany Firewolves 10-9 in overtime. The Toronto Rock in overtime defeat the Halifax Thunderbirds 9-8 in a record-breaking game that I got to have an eyewitness to. The Philadelphia Wings fall to the Vancouver Warriors 21-12. Why was it record-breaking, Deej, you may ask? Number one, it is the first time in franchise history the Vancouver Warriors have scored 20 or more goals in a game. Number two, it is the first time in new Philadelphia Wings history that they have surrendered 20 or more goals in a game.
Yikes.
We'll talk about that game a little more in just a moment. The New York Riptide win the Gatorade #NotASponsor showdown as they beat the Rush 14-11. Colorado stuns Rochester 13-7. San Diego in overtime survive the Vegas Desert Dogs 10-9. And then Redacted somehow just find a way, as they always do. They beat Saskatchewan 9-7. And your standings in the National Lacrosse League after week 17. Toronto, like we mentioned last week, clinched a playoff spot. They're 12-3. San Diego has clinched a playoff spot. Congrats to the boys. Look at that, Deej. They've won game. They've only lost one game, I believe, since they did the thing, and they've clinched a playoff spot. Look at the boys thriving in their OTB era. We love to see it.
This dude.
We love to see it.
You know what? Get your rocks off. It's fine. Do your thing.
Hey, we're a pro Seals podcast now.
I've always been pro Seals.
We've been pro Seal. I've been pro Seals players, pro Seals coach, GM, pro Seals president. Shout out Steve Govett. But it took 4.5 years for the social team to get on board with the boys. So, but they're here and we're thriving in our.
And how long have the Wings been on board?
You take that back. But anywho,
can we talk? Can we talk about the Riptide?
We will talk about them in just a moment. Rest of the standings, though. Shout out to the Seals for clinching a playoff spot. Now 6 playoff spots remaining for the NLL playoffs. Albany at 10-5, Redacted at 9-7, Halifax at 8-7, Panther City and Buffalo at 7-7, and I think Panther City has the tiebreaker now because that's the only time they play each other, if I'm not mistaken. New York at 7-8, Rochester at 6-7, Calgary at 6-8, Philadelphia and Saskatchewan both at 5-8 with a massive game on deck on Thursday night for a tiebreaker and a potential season breaker on the line. Colorado and Vancouver both at 5-9, and Las Vegas in the basement at 4-10. Deej, let's talk about the New York Riptide.
Bro, did you watch the game?
That game I don't believe I was able to watch because I was watching the onslaught of Keegan Ball at the Wells Fargo Center in person.
I'm sorry. And I'm low-key mad you didn't respond to me. But I understand why you didn't, because when I found out he had 8 goals, all I could say to you was 8 goals with like 1,000 exclamation points and question marks. Because what? You let him score how many? 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8?
Yeah. Not fun.
He ate y'all for it. All right, I'm done.
Yeah, when you sent me that text about 8 goals, my brain honestly couldn't even conceptualize what you were referencing because I was like, the differential's more than 8. But then now that you say that, makes sense. Yeah, Keegan Ball was on one, bro. It was unreal to watch in person. Mitch Jones was equally on one, but he was the only one on one for the Wings.
And you know what sucks for the both of them, which is why I really wanted to bring this whole thing up, is neither one of them were as on one as this guy. Teeter was more than on a heater this weekend. Do you know how many? You know how many goals the Riptide scored this weekend?
They scored 14.
Do you know how many of them Jeff Teat was responsible for?
13.
Man's basically beat Saskatchewan by himself. He basically beat Saskatchewan by himself. No Jeff Teat. Saskatchewan wins 11-1. Jeff Teat there, they lose 14-11. Like, I don't know what else to say other than Jeff Teat needs to be the MVP.
Yeah.
Because it's clear
he's
as
certainly like entrenched in the MVP like conversation. Like there's no removing Jeff Teat from the MVP conversation. There will be discussions about other players as well, but Jeff Teat is firmly entrenched until further notice. Teeter had a hell of a game. Franchise record for most wins in a season for the Riptide so far and counting. So shout out to them.
And I mean,
fitting,
they're right outside the
fitting
playoff.
that happens the year that they're relocating.
Right. That's what I was thinking about it. Is like, dang, like y'all doing all this on y'all way out. Y'all could have been did this, and maybe y'all be able to stay. But no, I don't think that was necessarily the case in that. But they have a chance to make the playoffs if they get some help in the next couple of weeks. They have a pretty favorable schedule with.
I mean, they're in right now. If the season ended today, they're in.
Yeah, they're gonna need some help though to stay there. They have Rochester followed by Vancouver and then Albany. So they're gonna need, to grab some wins. Preferably that Albany win is probably the one they're gonna need out of these next couple, and they're gonna need somebody to beat somebody else. Most likely Buffalo. Or sorry, not Buffalo. It's Rochester. So if they beat sorry, I should correct myself then. That game they have next week. Next week?
Probably, because this is a short week.
Is this week 19 or 8? This is week 18. Yeah, so next week, week 19, when they're playing Rochester, that's going to be a huge game, pretty much playing for that 8th spot. And then if they lose that game to Rochester, they're going to need some help on the back end, beating Rochester, Buffalo. But, I mean, they're going to want to watch out for my boys up north. They got Saskatoon coming to town next week, but we play twice against Saskatoon, home and home. I mean, I'm trusting the Roughnecks to win both of those.
It's going to be a crazy stretch run because I believe
it's
23 weeks?
Dog. 7 through 10 right now.
It's crazy.
Is a slot fest.
It's crazy.
Because Calgary plays Buffalo in the last week of the season.
Yeah.
Or in week 20. And then they play Panther City week 21. While also, the Riptide play Rochester.
The Wings also play Rochester. They also play Panther City again to even out that split.
Who else is that?
Wings also play Buffalo.
Yeah, Wings play Buffalo this week. Like that section of space is getting real cramped. And at this point, you got to be undefeated on the way out.
I know Colorado and Vancouver are technically still in the mix, but I feel like everyone kind of views them as looking towards the draft. That's where everyone's kind of seeing them right now. But you look at Saskatchewan, Philly, that game Thursday night is going to determine so much about one of those two teams. Calgary, Rochester, those are your first 4 out. It's March Madness, use some terminology there, of the playoffs. But then you have New York, Buffalo, Panther City, Halifax, redacted, all with 7 to 8 losses that are in the playoffs right now. It's going to be a crazy stretch run.
It's getting muddy.
And, a little bit more on the Philly game because I had the press conference after, and Blaze Reardon took full accountability for the squad as a captain would and should. It was an ugly game. By the third quarter, it was over. It was the most booze I've ever heard at the Wells Fargo Center for a Wings game. Paul Day did not put it lightly, said that pretty much outside of everyone not named Nick Rowlett, but I feel like he was kind of not neglecting the fact, but everyone kind of knew Mitch Jones was on one and provided the most scoring output. Didn't include Mitch in this, but said everyone outside of Nick played like shit. Those were words. I'll put the video in here so everyone can see. It was an ugly, ugly night at the Wells Fargo Center. And to me, my mentions now whenever I'm covering a Wings game is just questioning why Paul Day still has a job, this, that, and the third. And I'm like, we've talked about it a number of times on this show. And we're not just saying this because Paul Day is a friend of the show, listener of the show, supporter of the show. Number one, it is heading into week 18. Who are you going to find on the open market to replace Paul Day in both a head coach and GM title that's better than Paul Day? I'll tell you right now, ain't nobody out there right now. Number two, when it comes to, and I asked Paul this, I asked Blaze this, I asked Joe Resetarits this. Chad Tutton a few weeks ago, when the Wings lost by 1 to Halifax, answered one question after the press conference, and thankfully it was mine because it was a good answer that I wanted to hear on. We talked about it on the show, how the Wings started to simplify the defense. And outside of this debacle of a game, which can't even really solely be put on the defense. If you watch the game, you can tell why Vancouver was able to put up 21. The Wings defense has done a very solid job for the past month and a half in limiting opponents, because before this game, the most goals they had given up since that Halifax game was the 14 to Calgary in Calgary. And that was and 2 of those goals I think were garbage time / empty netter type things. So in terms of actual gameplay, you call it 12, but scoreboard will say 14. Nonetheless, that's solid. That's a game you should win. They didn't win that one, but it's a game you should win in the NLL with the offense that they have. But outside of that, they've held opponents to 8, 10. They've been doing well on defense. And I asked them, is it something you guys have talked about to kind of simplify the offense and make things easier for yourselves? And everyone kind of all hinted at yes, we need to stop making things as difficult as they are for us right now. And to me, Deej, you tell me, as a coach yourself and as somebody who watches the game with a coach's eye, to me, that comes from not your head coach. That comes from the person who's calling and running the offense in terms of the overall game plan. But the call to simplify things is coming from your head coach.
Yes. But also there's that element of what I think,
and obviously a lot of players too.
Right. I think a lot of, and that's where I'm going, is a lot of sports, and not even just lacrosse or at the pro level, but just all levels. There's been the awareness level in players is just not where it used to be anymore. So guys aren't making those changes on the fly as much. And I understand too, because both being a player recently and a coach, game plans are made for a reason because they're going to work. But then if you start running a game plan that's not working and your coach isn't doing anything to fix it, you kind of just have to go off plan and and look at what is being presented to you in the midst of the game while you're playing and play based off of that. You often hear coaches or offenses go, play off what the defense is giving you. So if they're giving you your right out right away, go to your right and maybe roll back to your left. Go to your right, split back to your left. Whatever the case may be, go to your right, bring it all the way around, set a pick. Whatever you have to do to improvise off what you're being shown and given, rather than trying to make your game plan work when they're adamant on taking that away. It just seems like there's no awareness on field to be okay, I hear coach saying we should do this. I also hear head coach saying, let's just be simple. How about I'll just take both of those ideas and take part of the game plan while being simple and just go off what the defense gives me. Defense, vice versa. Instead of trying to run a specific defensive scheme, just keep them out of the middle. Just make it simple. What's the word? Force them to one side. Dictate where the offense is going to go so that you know what's going to happen. None of those things are happening, and not even just for the Wings, but across the league and across sports and levels. Excuse me. We see just this lack of awareness to just make a play. And then you see it sometimes, this weekend. Perfect example of that with the Wings. Mitch Jones just went out and made plays based off of what he was given, but nobody really followed his line with that. You got to follow, everybody's kind of got to see, oh, okay, he's went off script a little bit, but it's working. So let's just find a way to go off what we're given, go off script a little bit and fuse the game plan together. But they kind of just watched him do it and were like, yeah, Mitch, you got it. And that's my bigger thing is coaches can give you the tools. They can tell you and teach you how to use them, but you are the one who actually has to pull them out and use them in those circumstances. So if you have a screw and it's fit for a Phillips, your flathead will work, but only so much. So mix your flathead with the Phillips and do something to figure out a way. Maybe you screw in with your hand for so long until you can start using the flathead. you find a way to make it work. Right now, they're kind of just like, oh, we got this Phillips screw, but we only got a flathead, so let's keep cranking it until it works. And it's like, that's not going to work.
And the thing with the Wings offense is they should be an electric screwdriver.
Yeah, they should be a power drill.
Should be a power drill type of offense. And, you know, we've mentioned this a ton. Like, we don't ever want to call for anyone's jobs, but it's to the point where, like, you got to look in the mirror and see what's not working. And I hate to say, and we say it all the time, we give him credit for what he accomplished when he was in Saskatchewan. 3 championships in 4 seasons is crazy. But I genuinely feel like Jeff McComb is living off the successes that he had in Saskatchewan, and it's just not translating to what they have here in Philadelphia, which is crazy because arguably more or equal to talent on this Wings roster than those championship Saskatchewan rosters had. Like, you shouldn't have all of these guys on this Wings offense and not be able to produce more than 10 goals a game on average. You know, and 2015 and 2018, the Rush offense was a top 3 scoring offense in the league. That's nowhere in sight with this Wings offense, and there's arguably more talent in a more athletic league. You know, you look 10 years down the line from 2015 to now, the league's gotten more athletic. The players on this Wings team are more athletic, and I think anyone would say that, than the team was in 2015. Just how players evolve, how sports science evolves. There's no reason that this Wings team should be, like, struggling to score at the clip that they're scoring at. Something has to get done, and I know it's easy bait in any pro sport to call for the head coach, but genuinely, like, after dealing, like, it feels very similar to the Eagles for me this year, having gone through this Eagles season where you're riding the highs and, you know, you have this talent and something just stops clicking and then all hell breaks loose. And everyone's talking about Nick Sirianni on the Eagles. Everyone's like, oh, Nick Sirianni's got to go, this, that, and the third. Maybe the guy who's calling the offense needs to be changed. And that's what the Eagles did this offseason. The Eagles fans, myself included, are hoping that Kellen Moore is going to help fix this prolific Eagles offense that has now added a Saquon Barkley to the mix. Maybe it's too late this season, but Paul Day, I think, has to kind of look himself in the mirror and say, what can we do to fix this team? And I think number one is you need to bring in some fresh blood calling the offense. The league has evolved in such a way that you look at teams like Toronto, Halifax, Buffalo, even Colorado the past couple of years. This year, kind of an outlier for them. You know, you look at the teams, San Diego, look at those offenses. And what do they all have in common, Deej? And I think we can agree on this. They have prolific scoring ability. What does this Wings team have in common with those teams? They have prolific scoring ability, and they're not cashing in on it. Something has to be fixed. I think the offensive play calling for the remainder of the season needs to be dummied down to as minimal as possible. And, you know, Joe Resetarits said it best. Like, they're playing with their backs against the wall for the rest of the season. And hopefully that lights a fire under their asses because they need it. And I want to see the boys succeed. The boys know I want to see them succeed. They know that the pod wants them to succeed because it's good for the pod. It's good for the brand to have playoff lacrosse in a home market for us. But you can't go out and expect to be a playoff team with the prolific scoring ability you have by averaging just over 10 goals a game in this league. It's just not going to get the job done.
Yeah. For me, it's a coordinator thing. And like we talked about, I think this isn't our first time talking about this specific scenario. It's hard to do something great consistently. And especially when other people start biting off of it, which we've seen happened with that Saskatchewan-based offense for years now. I'm just not sure how you look at the roster he has in front of him and decide that he can't find something to make work. Like, you have so many players on your team that can use both hands effectively, and you have shooters, you have inside guys, you have guys who can handle tightly, you have guys who can initiate, and it just doesn't seem like he's using everyone to their best ability and trying to exercise all their skills.
Yeah. So it's a big couple days coming up for the Wings. Obviously, Thursday night lacrosse and Saturday afternoon lacrosse. So South Philly's going to be bumping this weekend, along with opening weekend for the Phillies at Citizens Bank Park. But the Wings got to take advantage here. And I know, like, Buffalo is prolific. They can score. We've seen it this year. Not the same Buffalo team on the road. They're 5-3 at Banditland. They're 2-4 on the road. The Wings want to take advantage of some opportunities here. Beat a Saskatchewan team that you're very capable of beating, and then beat a team who's not so good on the road this year, and maybe you save your postseason chances. That remains to be seen. But the rest of the week that happened, shout out to Panther City, big-time dub over Buffalo to shake up the standings a bit. Calgary, big-time dub for the boys to upset Albany. And Colorado saying we're not dead yet. But quite the week in the NLL. San Diego clinches the playoff spot. And we are on to a short Week 18, Deej, our Week 18 preview here. It's brought to you by our pals over at Dead Threads, our official partner for our Madness Bracket Challenge. Guys, we know OTB Nation has joined our bracket challenge, which if you have a live bracket, you can still join the bracket challenge. Just join the group. It's linked in the description. But we know when you saw that cold-ass white boy, Jack Golke, popping off against Kentucky, when you saw your brackets go up in flames, you thought it was over. You thought it was done. Another year of sadness and not madness. No. Our friends at Dead Threads have some of the sickest merch that are going to make you forget about your brackets because you're going to be styling and profiling with them. It's a take on sports, entertainment, and celebrity with an artistic feel and kind of an underground look, if you will. Dead Threads, they're awesome. I have some of the merch when we got onboarded with them, and, you know, everything features a skeleton, some flames. Deej, they got some Michigan stuff that I'm sure you would absolutely love. We're going to be hooking up some lucky listeners and followers of the Bracket Challenge. If you are in our Bracket Challenge group, DM us your dead brackets. We're going to pick some lucky winners to get some merch from our pals at Dead Threads, which you can also go to deadthreads.shop or click the link in the description. When you go to checkout, use code UNDERGROUND. You get 10% off your order. Shout out to Dead Threads. Some awesome merch. It's super comfortable, super fire. People are going to be asking you, where'd you get that from? It's all from Dead Threads. So go to deadthreads.shop or click the link in the description and use code UNDERGROUND for 10% off your order. Shout out to Dead Threads. Deej, Week 18. Very short week. Just 4 games on deck. One Thursday game, obviously from the makeup from the snow out earlier in the year. It's finally here. And then we got 3 games on Saturday to quench our lacrosse fix as we head into another weekend of NLL. Thursday is Saskatchewan at Philly. Our boy Cody Jansen going to be in the building. I'm going to link up with Cody on Thursday night, say what's up to the boy. At 7 o'clock Eastern time on Thursday night. Then a quick turnaround for the Wings as the Bandits come to town, and it is WWE night. Well, WWE day, I should say. Wide. They're giving away a sick promo, Deej. If I can get my hands on it, I'll feel so. It's Wingston with a WWE belt.
Oh, that's fire.
It's so sick. WWE Day at the Wells Fargo Center. But quick turnaround, Saturday, 1 o'clock game because the Flyers have the nightcap. But I did see a dope jersey swap that they did this weekend. Wings transition player Marcus Minichiello was childhood teammates with current Flyers superstar stud Owen Tippett. So the boys reunited, did a little jersey swap in the locker room. Pretty dope to see that. But the Buffalo Bandits coming to town. I'm going to see the Chaotic Bandits, see the boys, and hopefully the Wingies can pull out a dub over the Bandits to help save their postseason run. But just hope all the teams have fun in terms of our guys that are friends of the pod. Then we have a battle of Halifax and Rochester at Rochester, 7 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday. And then Vancouver at Vegas. A lot of draft implications laying in the bed of that game. What are you looking forward to most this week, Deej?
The game you just mentioned, that 10 p.m. start on Saturday that I'm sure I'll fall asleep on, to be honest. But I love games that are playing for last place. Like, I'm almost positive the Pistons and the Wizards still have to play this year again. So, like, I'm excited for that. Like, I love games that are playing for last place. Because I always question, like, watching the game, there's just two questions. Are they out there playing to win, or are they out there playing not to lose? You know, like I mean, like, some people think those are the same question, but they're not. You know, like, when you're playing to win, it's very obvious, and when you're playing not to lose, it's also very obvious. You're like, I don't want to lose, but I don't really want to win either. They would prefer to lose and get the last spot, but they don't want to look like they're losing on purpose to get the last spot, which makes it more fun because both teams are out there kind of just because they have to be. That's like almost why these games are so fun, because like there's still a lot of energy and a lot of passion, and they still like care about the game as a whole, like lacrosse, but they're like walking into the game, checking the watch, like, season's over already. Where am I going after the game for a few? You know, so like it's just fun. But then, I mean, first game, it's the bookends this week. I think the middle games are pretty self-explanatory. I think it's really tough for Philly to be playing twice this weekend, even though it's not back to back. That's still extremely tough. So I think Buffalo's kind of just in that position where they're like, we need this game so that we can pretty much solidify playoffs for us over the next few weeks. I don't really see them dropping it after you guys are playing at home already. And then Halifax, Rochester, I don't know. Rochester's been interesting the last couple of weeks. They started off like super hot, and they just haven't done anything recently. So like I almost feel like that's a handshake. Huh. That's a handoff to Halifax. I think that one's going to be super easy. Well, I shouldn't say super easy, but I don't see them struggling a lot in that game. I see them coming out on top, and but the bookend games are going to be great. We're going to get amazing energy in that first game of the weekend in terms of season is over for one, playoff hopes stay alive for the other. So that's probably the most exciting game we have for the weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild stretch, and I'm sure I'm going to be putting in permutations galore on our good pal Graham Parrow, NLLstats.com, because we were talking about before, Deej, and I was telling you all the features that he has on his website. He's also got the playoff predictor, like, could happen thing, so you can plug in if this team wins, if that team wins, and where it sets up the playoffs and everything. I'm going to be punching the numbies on that to figure out how the Wings can get into the playoffs galore after this weekend, one way or the other. But it's a nice short week. I'm looking forward to being at the Wells Fargo Center just 2 more times this year. The rest of the Wings games are on the road. So these will be my final trips to the Wells Fargo Center on the season. It's been an unreal year, and I always love the opportunity to go to the Wells Fargo Center every single weekend for these Wings games. Don't take it for granted. It's the first organization that ever gave us the opportunity to be a credentialed media outlet. And I love our relationship with them. They continue to just be unbelievable to us, and look forward to just building that relationship as we push through. And when the Wings are on the road, I've been in some talks. We're going to try to get some of the boys on potentially to keep that, relationship going and having some fun with the fellas. So looking forward to a couple more trips to the Farg this year. And then we will we'll have a nice little battle of old and new, Halifax and Rochester, and then Vancouver, Vegas on Draft Watch, which is going to be a ton of fun, which brings us to, Deej, the old pick pond. And let's feed some ducks, head on over to the pick pond, and give everybody our NLL beer money picks of the week for week 18, brought to you by Kenwood Beer, the official beer partner of Underground Sports Philadelphia and the Outside the Box podcast. It's a refreshing light beer, just 4.1% ABV, only 120 calories and 8 grams of carbs. There's never an upset when you got Kenny's on deck. Go to kenwoodbeer.com, use the Kenny Finder to see who's got Kenwood Beer on tap in the Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Maryland, and New Jersey areas. And of course, check out the Kenwood Beer shop for all your Kenwood apparel, Kenwood Beer pint glasses, all that good stuff. kenwoodbeer.com. Must be 21 or older to do so. And of course, please drink responsibly. Deej, we start off in the city of brotherly love, Saskatchewan, at Philadelphia. Playoff lives, realistically, for both teams on the line in this one in some way, shape, or form. How do you see a battle on Thursday night lacrosse going down at the Farg?
Most teams have split their two game weekends this year. And you may not like the sound of this, but I believe that trend continues. But I believe this is the game that you win, which in my opinion is the more important one for you guys to win at the moment.
Agreed. I'm with you. I got the Wings winning this one. I think it's the more winnable of the two on paper. Even though, in years past, in just like history-wise, tells you the Wings have had close games galore with the Buffalo Bandits. It's going to come down to execution, and we'll see if that takes place. We already got Deej's pick there with Buffalo. I'm gonna stray from the path. I've been picking the Wings all year to win games. I'm gonna do a little reverse hijinks. I'm gonna pick Buffalo to win. Will I be thrilled if the Wings get the dub? Absolutely. But like you said, short week. It's a tough turnaround. It's not even a full 48-hour turnaround. Realistically, by the time that Thursday game is over, it's gonna be like 9:30. You got a game at 1 o'clock Eastern on Saturday, so you're going to be up and back on the floor at around 8 a.m. I'm going to take Buffalo. Hopefully the Wings get it done. Come on out to the Wells Fargo Center before you go to Citizens Bank Park, where your boy will also be. But let's move to the nightcap on Saturday, as we got Halifax and Rochester on deck. Rochester's offense got a little stifled by the Colorado Mammoth of all teams. I do like how Halifax is playing, but these teams are both hungry. They're both desperate for a dub. But you know what? I'm going to stray from the path. I'm going to go with Rochester to pull a little upset here and cause a little chaos in these standings here in the month of March.
You just keep making our standings separate farther from each other. You're just giving me an easy one here. There's no way Halifax loses this game. They've been cruising all year, really. They've been playing very good lacrosse all year. And the games that they've lost were against better competition, and they were close games. I don't see Rochester as a better comp this year. They've slowed in the recent weeks, because the beginning of the year they were on fire. And if they were playing like that still, this would be a much tougher game to pick. But I think Halifax is looking to clinch playoffs within the next couple of weeks, and they got to keep winning.
And then we've got the draft game. Vancouver at Las Vegas. Vancouver's 5-9. Vegas is 4-10. If I'm not mistaken, Vegas got the dub earlier this year. I could be wrong on that. Do not quote me. But a big one in terms of draft implications for this game. Deej, how do you see the draft duel playing out?
I mean, come on. Come on. We really having this conversation right now? You know who I trust. His initials are CM. Kurt Malosky. The man is good at what he does. He's having some trouble setting up his systems over in Vancouver this year. But I'm trusting them to go ahead and make it happen. They've been able to put up a few more goals. And Vegas, it's the end of games for them. Like, if you look back at so many other games, they're not getting blown out. They're not getting destroyed. It's the end of games. They can't close them out. And I can't bank on them doing it again. But I do like the idea of them getting another number 1 overall pick.
On record, I was correct. Vancouver won the first matchup in Vancouver 10-9. I'm going to take Vegas. I don't know why. I'm going to take Vegas. I want the chaos for the playoffs to equal the chaos for the number 1 overall pick. And what's better than having 3 teams vying for that top pick that all have the same record, and you need tiebreakers galore. And one of those teams doesn't even have the rights to their own pick, and it belongs to the Philadelphia Wings. So I will be taking Las Vegas to make the draft pure chaos as we head into April. So there are your picks of the week. We both have Philly. We both have Buffalo. I've got Rochester. Deej has Halifax. I've got Vegas, and he's got Vancouver. And those are your NLL Week 18 picks of the week, brought to you by Kenwood Beer. And like we mentioned at the top of the show, the boys have an intern. OTB is expanding. And without any further ado, let's get into our interview with the man, the myth, the legend, the PLL Pipeline, the homie, new OTB intern, Chase, on how the PLL Pipeline started, what got him into the sport of lacrosse, and what made the opportunity of joining OTB just one that he couldn't pass up. All right, everybody, we teased it last week's episode, said we had some big news coming, and we've got an awesome guest on this week's episode, and it is the man, the myth, the legend, my boy Chase, the face behind the PLL Pipeline. Chase, we have been boys for 2 PLL seasons now. We were hanging out at Champ Series all week this year. We've been on the road together, linking up at a bunch of different PLL stops, and it's finally fun to get one of the boys on the pod.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I really appreciate it. When I started going to games, you were one of the first people I met, and we immediately hit it off. So it's been awesome to have a familiar face in some of those rooms. So very excited to finally get on the podcast. As soon as I heard about you guys, became a fan and started catching up on episodes. So happy to be here.
It is always fun when you pull up to a PLL weekend and you're not the only one there, and you see the familiar faces, and it's like you're linking up with like all the big dogs in the room, and it's like, let's go. We're gonna have ourselves a weekend.
For sure.
So I don't even really know your origin of creating the PLL Pipeline. I remember seeing the Instagram account follow me a couple years ago, and I was like, who is this? Like, because there's those random like fan accounts out there, and it's like, are they like truly like about it? Are they like just trying to curate like just ridiculous controversy and stuff like it? Because there's those Twitter accounts too, and Twitter and Instagram are 2 totally different platforms, and you crush the Instagram game. But me being like, oh, I'm not even OG, but like OG PLL lacks Twitter. You run into some people and you're like, it's the Conor McGregor meme. It's like, who the fuck is that guy? So what spurned you to kind of start the PLL pipeline, and how did you kind of get into, following pro lacrosse in general?
Yeah, so starting off with the lacrosse side of things, as you can see in the background, I've got a Maryland flag. I'm from the great state, and lacrosse is something that even if you try to avoid it, I didn't play it until my freshman year of high school. It eventually finds you, and so I played all throughout high school. And it was right when COVID happened that they did the bubble with the PLL. And I'd heard about the PLL, but I mean, I was still learning the game of lacrosse. I didn't know that there was a professional league. So when the bubble happened and COVID happened, that gave me the opportunity to sit down and watch. And I took on the Water Dogs as my team because they were the new boys in. So from that moment, I became a fan. And then a year or two passed. So it wasn't this past season, but the season before that, I was a lifeguard. So up in the chair for 30 minutes, and then for the rest of the time, you're just kind of hanging around. And then sometimes it storms, you're still there. So knowing me, I was just like, I need something to do. And that kind of manifested in the PLL pipeline. So I believe it was like week 4. And so I had taken a class earlier that year that kind of taught me a little bit about Photoshop, about Adobe products. And I was like, I'm a journalism, sport management major. That's something that I should probably start to pick up a little more on. So I was like, okay, I've seen other accounts for other sports, and they've kind of taken this model of you able to build some graphics, do breaking news, that type of stuff. So started following all the big accounts on Twitter. And I think the first post I ever did was, it was either a schedule or like an injury report for the week. And I remember getting like 2 followers out the gate, and I was like, oh, okay. So, and then, so I carried on the rest of the way. I started learning more about Photoshop. And then I remember, I think it was Tom Schreiber, that liked a story or a post or something. And I was like, oh my gosh, all right, this is really cool. Because if I did a page for like the NFL, I wasn't, lacrosse is a really tight knit community. Once you're in, like, everyone just embraces you. And so the first player that ever followed me was Kate Van Raphorst. So that
program.
Yes. And so that was great. And I just continued to build it, and I didn't really ever expect it to go anywhere. And eventually I reached out to Joe Keegan and the people at the PLL, and I was like, hey, I'm building this thing. I don't really know what it is. When I reached out to Joe, it was probably like maybe 500 followers. And I was like, hey, I've got this thing that I'm starting to build. And he was like, you want to come to games? You want to join the press? And I didn't know that was an option. And so I was able to come out last season to Fairfield and to Baltimore, and then Champ Series just recently. But, when I started it, it was a hobby. It was a thing to pass the time. And now it's like, after I'm done with all my schoolwork, all right, let's start building stuff for the page and make sure all the posts are ready for tomorrow. I never thought I'd ever, touch social media like in this way. But every day, like, I get DMs from people, and they're like, hey, love the content, keep it up. Like, and then I get people that are like, hey, have you heard anything about this? And, it's cool. I never expected to, be a part of the lacrosse community in this way. As a player, I wasn't the best. I started, but I wasn't ever, going to the next level. And when I came to school, I wasn't playing club lacrosse. And so this is my way to connect with the game, and it's been an awesome journey.
Yeah, it's one of those cool things that I think the PLL in particular has done such a phenomenal job with, as an up and coming league. They've been around for 5 years now, and they have done just such a great job of embracing anyone who wants to cover their league, the sport, and making sure that, like, as long as they're doing it in a proper way, you're welcome to come and cover the league. And I think that's the coolest part about the PLL. Like, we got started. It's so funny. I don't know if you know how, like, I never played lacrosse. I never knew anything about lacrosse. And then when the NLL was coming back to Philly with the Wings in 2018, the draft was here. And my original co-host, who still works for us, he was like, yo, the Wings are coming back. I think this is a good opportunity for us, like, to get involved with lacrosse. And he played in high school and college. And I was like, hey, if you take the reins, I'll follow your lead. And then we're at the draft. He's a teacher. We had to leave. He had to leave early because he had to go teach the next morning. So I'm like, all right, I don't know who any of these people are. Now looking back, it's so funny because I was like, Trevor Baptiste draft, Austin Stotts, like all these guys who I know now and like who have been on the show. And I was like, I got to put my journalism hat on and try to shake some hands and see what I can do. I meet the commissioner at the time, and then our first episode of the podcast ever is at the NLL league office. And then that first summer was when the PLL started, and it was like, oh, this is perfect. And we built it from there. And like seeing the original guard of like lacrosse media, you know, you see the Rosies, Phil Shore, Dan Arestia, who have been around and we're covering the MLL and covering college the way that they do. And then you see kind of the new guard come in, like myself, you see Connor Eck there as kind of an influencer type media member. It's cool how no matter where you started, everyone is kind of like welcome into the media room.
Yeah, no, it's intimidating because I remember my first game as like a press member was Fairfield. I had never been to the great state of Connecticut before. I made my way up there because the opportunity presented itself, and I remember walking to the. I walked up and my heart was beating out my chest because I believe it was Carcaterra walked up and I was like, oh my gosh, like I've heard his voice before on TV. Like, how am I here with the press badge and all that? And but really the community does embrace you. It is so great to see. And it really has become like our little family on the sideline that can just chill and talk about the games.
Yeah, we talk about the games, talk about stuff going on. And I think one of the cool things that, you know, getting to know you and how you run the PLL Pipeline, you are so goddamn quick with getting these posts up on Instagram. How are you, like, do you have like I feel like you're like the GIF from SpongeBob where he's got like the 7 arms, he's rocking the baby and beating the blanket. Like, I feel like that's you getting these posts up in the manner that you do. How do you do it so quickly? And I have to assume you have notifications on for every team.
Oh my gosh. My phone is constantly blowing up. I've got the Twitter notifications on everybody. I've got it on Dan. You have been awesome in reaching out to me when you've got something. And then Inside Lacrosse, Kevin, those guys, Rosie, like I've got them all. I've got all the teams. Really, it's just, you know, I'm still a student. So I'll be in class, you know, taking notes, and then all of a sudden every team decides to cut a player or to add a player, and I'm like, all right, let me take 10 minutes to first go find a picture of these guys, to add it to the graphic, and then put it out and write a caption. Like, so yes, sometimes it is like that, because, you know, I'm still doing stuff on campus. I'm still doing the student side of things. I wish I had more time in the day to devote to the pipeline. But right now, it can be daunting, just especially those days when every team decides to make a move at the exact same time. Free agency just passed, so it's definitely slowed down a little bit. All the boys are enjoying the trip to Japan, so gives me some breathing room. But yeah, sometimes it is like that SpongeBob meme where they're all just running around.
Yeah, and I mean, like a couple weeks ago when Jack Kelly resigns, and then I posted that out there and broke that news like right before we started recording, And then I'm about to hit record, and I get tipped off that Blaze is signing a contract extension, and I'm like, oh, I guess we have multiple things to put out before we start recording today. When it comes to the news side of things, and you have people reaching out to you on the positive side, have there ever been anybody out there being like, I don't believe this, but when you're posting, because obviously you'll post when like the team announces it, you'll tag the team, but when you're tagging like myself or Dan or Rosie or somebody, is there anybody that kind of questions like whether or not it's legitimate? Because I feel like the lacrosse space on Instagram, there's definitely crossover with Twitter, but I feel like it's also a different breed of PLL fan on Instagram versus Twitter.
Yeah, I haven't run into the negative side. There's definitely a lot of commentary just about some of the moves. Yeah, I mean, I think there is a lot of crossover, so I think people know. I've actually had people reach out before and been like, "Is this a trustworthy source?" And I was like, "Well, they broke such and such, so yeah." Because, like you said, there's crossover, but there's still like people on Instagram, they don't always know who Rosie, who you, who Dan are. But I think now they're like, okay, we can trust these sources. And I don't think I ever ran into the roadblock of like I posted something and that person was way off from whatever did end up happening. So I think I've done a good job of screening what goes on the page as well. So I haven't necessarily ran into the problem where people get confused or they're like, is this, can I trust your sources?
Yeah, that's how we talked about it on last week's episode, because I obviously reported the Ryder Garnsey is re-signing with the Redwoods, and as we're recording this a week prior to when you guys are hearing this, the Redwoods still haven't officially announced anything. And I said at the top of the show, I was like, I don't post anything in terms of breaking news wise unless I've 110% vetted the information. But that was the first time I've been like, how the fuck do Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport and like Jeff Passan do this for a living with the breaking news stuff? Because it was the first time I ever had people like questioning whether or not I was like on top of my shit. And I was like, guys, have I ever steered you wrong before? And two, I wouldn't put anything out there unless I had a trustworthy background of information on who was sending that to me. Don't worry, it's totally going to happen. And I also said, like, the Redwoods posted as soon as they traded for Chris Gray. I also think that was part of like why people were like, what the heck? Because I reported that as like 2 minutes after the Chris Gray trade happened. But I don't think the Redwoods official account would greenlight a graphic that featured Chris Gray, Rob Pennell, and Ryder Garnsey on it if the team did not have intention to re-sign the player.
Yeah, I remember they posted that graphic, and I was like, wait, did I miss it? Like, did they officially announce it? And I look at the comments, and people are like, is Garnsey back? Is Garnsey back? Does this mean Garnsey's back? If he is back, that is a scary trio there in California. That was really surprising to see that trade in general. But, yeah, draft's coming up, so that'll be another huge, free agency is the first hurdle of the offseason, and then you got the draft coming up as well.
Yeah, and there's still some big free agent dominoes out there that have to officially get announced. Yeah. Obviously, Ryder, but we still haven't heard anything about Michael Earhart's future. That's a big one.
And Eddie Glazner is still out there as well.
John Sexton.
Yeah.
Some big names still out there. When it comes to the draft, I know we were talking at Champ Series, and we're both kind of on the same page where like we follow the pro game a lot more closely than the college game. How much research do you do going into the college draft to make sure you're like on top of like getting the information out there for the college players coming into the fold?
Yeah. So I'm big into women's college lacrosse as well, because I do commentary on the side. So I'm definitely watching that as well. On the men's side of things, I actually have made it out to a handful of games, so I'm staying updated. But there is still so much discussion, even though it's only 4 rounds and it's 8 picks. There's still so much discussion, especially in that first round. So I haven't like completely dove into the deep end yet. But once we get closer to the draft, I'm gonna do my film reviews, try to dive down, hopefully get some content out about that. Definitely be more prepared. I did for the draft last year. I remember I posted like, "Oh, do you want me to do a live like draft reaction?" I posted like an hour before, and so I did it, and I was like, "Man, I really have to be way more prepared next year." Yeah, but I've done draft stuff for the NFL before, so I wish we had like I know they have like the all 22 film for the NFL. We need that for the college game.
Yes.
That would be amazing.
I think DJ would say, well, the first thing we have to do is get rid of BTN Plus and get some actual film crews in. Well, number one here, you talked about you did a live for the draft last year. I know they just announced the draft, which will be Tuesday, May 7th. We have obviously done in the past on a lower scale, and then last year was our big welcome to the moment type of situation where we had Greg Gorenlian on with us, we had Hutton Jackson, we attempted to get Newbie Talks, my boy Dan, but his Wi-Fi wouldn't permit him to get into the room for some reason. We had Jared Newman, and we had a FaceTime cameo from Jack Rowlett. I mean, if you're around Tuesday, May 7th at 7 o'clock, here's the formal invite. The PLL Pipeline is going to join the OTB college draft extravaganza.
Well, now I really gotta come in knowing my stuff. I gotta be like the guys on ESPN. I gotta lock in.
We gotta lock in. I mean, I gotta do the same. I lightly pay attention to the college game.
Mm-hmm.
I try to keep notes on the players who I hear the names the most. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, all right, these are the guys I got to know. I do something very similar to this Sixers podcast, The Rights to Ricky Sanchez, where their one host, Mike, he's like hardcore, dives into the tape on the college players for the NBA and the Euro players and everything. And Spike, he does his big board. It's his YouTube big board where he just watches YouTube highlights of guys. And that's kind of how I approach it. I'm like, I'm going to watch Twitter clips of some of these lacrosse collegiate players. And that's how I'll determine if they're good or not. And DJ does the deep diving and his boots on the ground at all these games and everything. And I'm like, we're both just built different. And that's what makes it work. So I'll continue watching the Twitter clips and you do the true analysis and we'll take it from there.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting. Even last year, there was so much shakeup right before because Adler went number 1 and you were wondering where Hanley was going to go. This year, it seems like there's, your clear number 1. But even then, I posted a graphic the other day where I was like, it was after the Chris Gray trade. I was like, oh, this is what the attack will look like if you guys get Shelley at second with Teat and Law. And there were still people like, nah, Schellenberger's going 1. Like, I thought we all agreed that that O'Neal was going 1. But
I thought we all realized that Brandon O'Neal was playing on Team USA as a junior in college.
And won like player of the tournament or whatever that award was. But yeah, people are like, nah, he's going 1. I was like, okay.
So, pal.
We'll see.
What has kind of been the most shocking in the good sense of the word, player or media member or anything in that space to follow the account where you were like, you saw that notification, you're like, holy shit?
I really do that with any player that follows me. I think they all hit the same. I mean, I was just thinking back like, oh, who were the first people? So it was Cade, and then it was Kobe Smith. It was also JT, Giles Harris, and even Brett Makar before he got drafted followed me. I just had one of the Spallina brothers follow. So that was pretty awesome. But yeah, just like any of the players that choose to follow me. Eventually, I do want to make like I saw another account for like an NFL. They did like an all who follows PLL Pipeline team, and I want to see. I have a lot of Fogos, so some of the Fogos are playing defense, but I think I've built up. If we're looking at who's following me, I think I can build up a pretty nice squad. But really, it's I'm so thankful and humble. Like whenever a player follows me, I'm like, they do not need to get all these posts the feed of what's going. They probably know way in advance of when I find out. But it's really cool. And then whenever they like, or I've even got comments back and forth like, I appreciate what you do. And even now, trying to build on the Twitter side of things, you get players follow you on there that aren't following on Instagram. So really anytime I get, a player or a coach or someone involved with the league to follow me, it is. And now I got the New York Stampede,
there you go,
group. So, hey, listen, calling out the other 7, you gotta join the ranks.
That's how we are on Twitter, trying to collect all these teams and stuff to follow us. I mean, we're in a social media war with a team down south in a state.
Yeah, I heard.
Dolphin squeak noises. But eventually the other 3 will get there. But yeah, it's the same with us. Like anytime I get a notification, I screenshot it and I send it to DJ, and I'm just like a whole bunch of eye emojis. Like we had Kark followed us on Instagram like last week, and I was like, holy shit. I was like, he knows we exist. Let's go. But yeah, it's wild with like players and stuff, and like looking at like when you started, like Cade is always going to be a guy that you are going to support 100%.
When I had the opportunity to pick up another jersey, Cade was the first one. Now it's an Atlas jersey, and they did my boy dirty. So I might have to revamp and get a Cannons one. Well, I'm waiting because presumably they'll have new jerseys for the new home cities. So gotta wait till those come around. But yeah, I'll always have that connection with. And like just recently, even Scanoni followed like the other day, and I was like, awesome. Like it's still like the same feeling every time.
Yeah, I know. Like we, our first because like when we started, a bunch of our interviews were over the phone, and we were like pumping them in through a phone call. We didn't even have video, and like that's when like our first guest was like 9 episodes in. It was Austin Stotts. And I'm doing it by myself. I don't know anything really about lacrosse at that time. And I'm just like, all right, what do I ask this guy? He was the number 1 overall pick in the NLL draft, and he's a stud. He's like everyone's like favorite new rock star player. And then like you progress down the line, and like Greg Renlian comes on, and it's like, holy shit, like this guy is like widely regarded as like the best face-off guy ever. Yeah. And then you see like all these players and coaches who like embrace your content and like appreciate everything you do. Like something that will always stick out to me is Boston 2022 quarterfinals were in our first in-person press conference of PLL since 2019, and it's more formal than it was then. Like 2019, we were doing like media scrums on the field. This is like first sit down in person, because everything had been on Zoom because of the pandemic and everything. And the Water Dogs are in there, and Kieran just points at DJ and I is like, thanks for the love on social media, boys, in front of the entire press conference. And we were like, did that just happen?
Yeah.
And it's like wild to see that, like, even if they don't acknowledge it on social media sometimes, like these players and coaches and league members, like they see this stuff, and it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I've had conversations with other people. And, the pipeline's still growing, but I wouldn't consider it like, oh, if you are in the lacrosse or the PLL space, you'll have seen this. But every time I'm like, oh, yeah, like I run this account. It's called the PLL Pipeline. People are like, oh, you run that account. You're the guy. I was like, yeah, wait, you know what this is? So it's just really cool when you get that reaction, because I still feel like I don't feel like I've grown, but I still feel like that kid that started this as like just a side project and is still trying to figure out all these moving parts of how Instagram works, how the algorithm works. I don't think I'll ever discover that, but how Adobe works, like just still figuring things out.
Yeah, it is wild. Like you walk, like this past year was the first time at different weekends that like I had people stop me and recognize me, and I was like, that's cool, but also that's so weird because I'm like, I'm just me. Like I don't view myself as like this celebrity. Like I'm not on the stature level of like a Big Cat or PFT or like Ryan Russillo or some of these big podcasters. Like we're just an independent media company and like just trying to, you know, build something fun and special, and to have people recognize you out in the wild is just like, huh? Like when we were at Champ Series, I had people from the league like, yo, great podcast with Mike, great job. Like I was like, what?
Yeah. Well, the influencers take it to another level. Like Mitchell Pelkey, they have doing a lot of stuff now. Varro, Connor Eck, like those guys, they're in front of the camera. I've seen them sign the weirdest stuff for these guys, for these kids. They it's just so fun to watch, and you know, not on that level because I don't put my face out there as much, but it's still really cool when you get that level of recognition of like, hey, like even if it's just like, hey, great job, like that still is huge.
It's like, oh, I'm doing something right. Like,
yeah,
this feels cool.
I'm on the right track.
The weirdest thing I ever, and it was weird because it was year one. It was when the playoffs were in Columbus in 2019, and these kids had like an authentic, had to have been like game worn or practice worn Naval Academy lacrosse helmet, and asked me to sign it. And I was like, I'm not doing that because I'm not ruining your dad's helmet.
Yeah. No, it's so interesting. Like they'll have like a Rambo jersey and they'll be like, oh, you know, such and such influencer, please sign this. And I'm like, that's a Rambo jersey. Don't you want
not mathin'.
But like these kids are all in. Like I see them all doing the frog. I can't do it, but I see them all doing it. It's like it goes back to what we were talking about with like the community idea. Like these kids know who these guys are, and it's just really cool because these players like RJ is walking around like a regular person.
RJ could run for president and win if a child demographic of 8 to 14-year-old lacrosse fans were
like, they love these guys. They are able to build that brand, and like it is so cool to watch from, you know, our group, which is like us two, Dan, like the Inside Lacrosse guys, versus those guys who are, you know, carrying the camera around, interacting with people. Yeah, like it is fun to watch from that perspective as well.
It is so wild. You know, you talk about like our side of things, you know, it's very funny how this all came to be. Because DJ and I, for the past couple of weeks, we were like, man, it would be cool. You know, we talked about it on a couple episodes too. Like, you know, if you're looking for an internship, this, that, or the third, reach out. And it's like, as soon as we stopped recording, we were like, I wonder if Chase needs an internship because he's still in college, but he knows the sport, he knows the league, he's credentialed with the league already, and he's really good at the social media thing. I wonder, we were like plotting and scheming away to like approach you about it without it coming off as like, oh, we view you as like this college kid, because we're like, he's one of us. And we were like, how do we do it? And then you DM'd me the other day and was like, hey, I'm catching up on episodes and heard you guys were looking for interns, would love to potentially work with you guys. And I sent it to DJ and we were like, let's fucking go. So big reason why Chase is on this episode, and we pitched it as an interview here, but we are submitting the formal application to Chase, aka the PLL Pipeline, to join OTB, currently on an intern basis, to help you with school stuff. And if you need to use it as a formal internship, I will sign any paperwork you need. And we have both been discussing that like you are the perfect like third mic fit for the show. You know your stuff, you're quick on the sticks, and we are submitting the formal application, Chase, if you would like to accept and sign to welcome the PLL Pipeline into the OTB family.
You know, this is an amazing opportunity. I never thought there'd be a day where I got the free agency contract in my hands. But yes, I will accept. I'm happy to join. When I sent that text, and I was like, or the DM, and I was like, I'm still looking for different stuff. Let me just see. Like I was catching up on episodes. And I heard, and I was like, I have a good rep with KB. Let me see if I can help them out. And so I'm very happy to join the OTB family. I've been a fan, and now I'm hoping to help you guys out in any way I can.
We are pumped. We were like, Chase is the perfect fit. Like he's been in front of our face this whole time, and it's just like the perfect mesh of everything. And for everybody out there wondering, like, is the PLL Pipeline going to go away? No, Chase has the full IP to the PLL Pipeline. We're just going to promote it more. Chase is going to pop up on episodes. He's going to be at weekends for the PLL like he always is. He's going to do content with us. And we're going to help him boost his internship street cred with his school and help him in any way possible and have him be part of the show because it just makes too much sense not to happen. So when you see PLL Pipeline, we're going to reference the PLL Pipeline a lot more on the show because we use the free agency tracker that you post like no other. And of course, anything that we can do to help elevate you into the eyes of friends of the program, we'll do that instantly, and we'll let everyone know, hey, go follow the PLL Pipeline as well as the pod, and we're pumped to have you on board with us and welcoming you onto the pod and be an official part of OTB Nation.
Well, I appreciate it. I have loved this debut. I always, when I started the PLL Pipeline, like I said, I never thought it would get to any close to this level, and it's still growing, and that is very exciting. So to take the next step to have a partnership with you guys and in the form of an internship, like that's awesome, and I'm glad to continue the experience, continue the growth, and just see where it all heads.
And we were talking about it after we recorded last week's episode. I said, Deej, Chase is from Maryland. He's going to be at Hopkins weekend. You're finally going to be at Hopkins weekend. Our Maryland weekend this year is going to be absolutely insane with content.
Mm-hmm. I love that stadium. At Hopkins, it was the first PLL game I ever went to. And it was I called the Matt DeLuca game because he went off that night. And that was also, I think it was the game where Zed Williams laid out somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my first in-person PLL experience, was Homewood and that stadium. And I love Maryland, love the state, love Hopkins, and a lot of good memories there.
Yeah, I mean, Hopkins has a special place for us too because year one, our original logo was so trash. It was like clip art pieced together. I was like, we need something better. I was in the press box at Hopkins, and I designed our current logo in the press box at Hopkins. So that's where that came to be. So it's always fun going to Hopkins. It's like, this is where like the pod really got an identity.
Mm-hmm.
But we're pumped to have you on board with us. Follow the PLL Pipeline on Twitter and Instagram. Chase, keep doing what you're doing. We're going to have a whole group chat now, and it's going to be electric. And welcome to the underground, man.
I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here and looking forward to the future.
Shout out to the boy Chase and welcome to OTB, brother. It's big time. We're big time. We're calling in. We're getting these Infinity Stones, Deej, and It was awesome seeing the reaction on social media from so many people that work at the PLL, just lacrosse online in general. The boy Connor Eck commenting on the post saying we are so back. It was just awesome seeing the reactions and kind of the collab that was meant to be and the team up event of the century in the lacrosse world. So very pumped to have Chase joining us as another member of OTB.
Rocket ship mentality, people. We are only going up. Only going up. Nothing is down about this place.
It's the place to be.
I said this place like OTB is a place. Not yet. Not yet. We are putting together everything one piece at a time. And Chase is just the newest block to the puzzle.
We told y'all we're the best goddamn lacrosse podcast on the planet. We had reasons.
Y'all gonna listen eventually.
One day they'll learn. Just like they'll learn to believe us when it comes to this whole PLL free agency thing, Deej. Well. It looks like the boys may know a thing or two when it comes to the PLL free agency game. Because, a short 12 days ago as we record this, your boy reported that the Redwoods are re-signing Ryder Garnsey, per source. Took the internet by storm, got questioned by some people. Didn't really think your boy had that type of gusto up his sleeves. No big deal. We like some doubters. We like some haters. A week carries on. PLL's in Japan. No news breaking. But then a nice, brisk Tuesday afternoon, the eye emojis drop. And Ryder Garnsey, team official, has re-signed with the California Redwoods through 2025, as first reported by your boy and the Outside the Box podcast.
For those of you who didn't get the meme that I dropped shortly after that news came out, that's Lola Brooke. Because don't play with it. He told y'all what was up, and then y'all tried to play with it. So don't play with it, don't play with it, don't play with it. Ryder is, in fact, a California Redwood. And they may have the most dangerous attack line in the league.
I'm gonna say you can have your pick 1A. It's them and the Water Dogs? ?
And I mean, I guess a close 2 is Archers.
And that's hinging on the health of.
And I say, and that's a 2A, 2B thing with, if you ask me, Cannons. I think the Cannons attack line is insane.
I think top 3, pick your poison, whatever order you want to put them in on paper right now. It's Water Dogs, Redwoods, Cannons. Those top 3s, you go
Grant.
You go Ryder, Rob, Chris Gray. You go Michael Sowers, Kieran, and Ethan Walker. Or you go Marcus Holman, Asher Nolting, and Matt Cavanaugh. And I mean, the Archers probably number 4, but a lot, obviously, like we said, hinges on the health of Grant Amen. But
I think
when healthy,
I think they're definite number 4, regardless of Grant being healthy or not. I think Grant makes them in the conversation for 3 and possibly 2.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're locked at 4 regardless. How good Mac and Connor are together, let alone without Grant, is just enough. Whether you put Trey LeClaire down there, Matt Moore, Connor DeSimone, it doesn't matter.
Now it'll be Cole Williams.
Right.
Which I kind of like even more for their offense.
I like Williams coming out of the midfield. I hope.
Well, I'm just saying their offense as a whole. I like Cole Williams in the mix.
I wouldn't even hate putting T. Shribes down there.
Sheesh.
It doesn't matter where you put him. He's just got to be on the field. So the attack line's interesting with the Archers, but I think they're like locked at 4 at the lowest. I don't think you can drop them below 4 because of how dynamic Connor Fields is. He can be a shooter, but he's going to take you. He's going to create for himself and others. Mac is just a pure shooter. And then plugging in the other pieces, you don't have to do much. You literally just have to be there. Dodge a couple times, initiate something, dish it off. You're good, so I like what they have going offensively. But the Ryder lock it's keeping me as a Redwoods fan. Let me say that. For now. The defensive side has some question marks, but.
And you and I are both, I feel like, in the minority of loving what the Redwoods have done this offseason. But you look at the talent on this offense for the Redwoods just as a whole, not just talking attack, but just the entire offense. Top 3 is obviously filthy and can be argued as best in the league. Then you're running Wes Berg in the midfield now, which is crazy. Last year he's coming off the wing for you primarily, with Ryan Lee being out, and had an unreal season back with the Woods. Now he's going to be in your midfield mix and a new look to your midfield. You have Ryan Lee, hopefully coming back healthy for you this year. You have Alex Simmons coming into the mix as a rookie for you this year. You have Nakai Montgomery, who is on the ultimate fuck you tour to every single one of his haters and doubters in your midfield this year. You have Kirsty coming in another year ready to play, and we saw how talented and how well he just fit this Redwood scheme in his rookie season. You have Anthony DeMeo, Charlie Bertrand, Romar's back. And we haven't even brought up the fact that, number one, the Redwoods official roster, Deej, has Ricky Miezon listed as a D-midi. And that boy,
he is going to be a D-mid.
But that boy can play.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Nobody said he couldn't play. But he's definitely going to be a D-mid. And I think he's just going to be a Ian McKay, like a Witcher, a Peter Bond, or Piper Bond, like that kind of guy where we're here to play D, but if I cause a turnover, I get out in the clear or whatever, we're looking offense first. They're not looking to clear and get off. They're looking to score. If it's not there, they'll get off. I think he's going to be an amazing addition in how the Redwoods already like to play offense. In terms of the transition game, they're very much, let's look to score. It doesn't matter if it's a pull, an attackman, short stick, mid coming out of the box. Doesn't matter. You got the shot, you take it, and we'll play, we'll figure that out on the back end. He's only going to come in and make that easier for them as somebody who has played a ton of offense, but is also probably the biggest actual non-pole on any field. The dude is monstrous.
Can confirm from seeing him in person.
The monstrous.
And shaking his hand.
Like, and his feet are great. That's the biggest thing. Being a former linebacker, but also playing midfield, he has amazing feet, which is the entirety of defense. You can have a great stick. You can be as smart as you want to be. You can communicate all you want. You can be in the right position. But if your feet are not good enough and they don't move and they're not fast, you will get toasted over and over.
And not only, not to cut you off, not only is his feet, not only is his foot speed elite, his foot control is elite with the speed that he has for his size too. Like, it was unreal in the games that I was able to watch him at Champ Series, seeing how well he moved and how in control of his entire body he was and how it came from his feet. His footwork is unbelievable.
He's one of those freak of nature guys you look at and you go, you shouldn't be able to move that fast at that size.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't be able to have that much control of your body in the air when you're that size. You shouldn't be able to stop on a dime and turn around and be back at full speed within 3 steps at that size. but he can do all of those things. He's going to blow the game of lacrosse up. I would have loved to have seen him on a football field in the NFL, but I am extremely happy it didn't happen. Extremely happy. We are losing a lot of our great athletes to other sports. And no disrespect to them, no anything. Like, that's fine. Go and do it, enjoy it, because that's something that everybody can't do. As much as I would love to be, a professional football player, I can't. Can't go be a professional basketball player. Shout out Pat Spencer. Shout out Chris Hogan. Like, we see it all the time where these guys are leaving for other sports. To see Ricky not get that opportunity, but immediately go to lacrosse and be like, this is it. I'm rocking with it. They're giving me the op. I'll take it. It's just great for the sport and great for fandom all around.
100%. And I can't wait to watch him all summer long. The other bit of free agency news that came out since we last recorded is friend of the program, the boy, the Swiss Army Machete, is staying put in Carolina Chaos Red. Ian McKay signs a 2-year deal through 2025 to remain with Chaos. Kind of a no-brainer. He's one of Andy Towers' boys. Love that for the boy, though. And he is back with Chaos. And the subsequent move, Chaos have released Kevin Lindley into the player pool. I think he's a sneaky pickup for a team that may be in need of a body for camp who could crack a roster. Hasn't had much playing time in the PLL, has only played in 2 games, but he's a sneaky, sniper type of scorer that if you have the ability to roster him, I don't see why not. And, there's a couple teams out there that I think could use Kevin Lindley's services.
There's 2 teams that I think have their telescopes out and looking at his name. One of them is Denver. I think with them kind of having the switch in branding and identity and going back to Denver, there's an opportunity for some new guys, some old guys, just anybody to kind of get in and figure out what they're going to do there. They don't know if they're going to bring back Brendan Intern because of his military obligations.
Well,
and
he
there's
is
some
out
other,
this year, like confirmed. He can't play this year, so.
Well, I was just saying, in terms of just signing him back in general.
I think the way it works, if I'm not mistaken, like the 30% threshold guys, like if you don't get signed by another team, you just defer back to the team you were on, and it's like a 1-year deal, or it's your rights or something like that.
I think it's rights, because I think they would have to technically re-sign him. So I think it's rights, but yeah. So they're gonna have rights, but they're not he's not gonna be on the roster. Somebody's got to fill that spot. Obviously, I think they're waiting for the draft a little bit, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them maybe give Kevin a call. And the other is Whipsnakes.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Yeah, Maryland with them trying to go younger as well, which we've heard Coach Staggs talk about throughout last season. There's going to be some open spaces there, or maybe he's thinking future because Kevin is a little younger than some of the guys he currently has on his attack line, some of the guys he has in his midfield. So he may just stash him and be like, hey, we'll sign you to a year and see if he cracks the roster. And then if he does, cool. We'll play you this year, see what you got. If not, he's probably going to come back to him like, hey, you're not going to crack the roster this year, but we'll keep you around. We'll have you sign. If something comes up, someone gets injured, we'll pull you up. But this is more of a next year or the year after thing. And more so next year, in my opinion. I think we're going to start to see some retirements from that Maryland Whipsnakes team as they start to get older. A lot of guys have been playing for a long time. So I think next year we see some retirements, and that might be where Kevin gets another solid shot at being productive for a team.
Yeah, there's a lot to, I think, still to come from PLL Free Agency. Some big names still out there, Deej. Most notably from the defending champion Utah Archers, Matt McMahon. Kind of surprising. There's been zero rumblings about that. Everyone was freaking out about Ryder Garnsey. Everyone was freaking about, some of these big names. Has not been a lot of rumblings about an OG member of the Archers and kind of the anchor of that defense. I would assume he's going to re-sign with the Archers, but it is interesting that we are sitting at March 27th and there hasn't been a single whisper about anything with Matt McMahon, who's a world-class defenseman.
I think the assumption there is he's going to resign. And I think the only other thing he could do is retire, but he seems a little young to do that.
31.
So I think, and the biggest piece is a lot of teams already have their defense. You know, they may not have like signed them, but like those guys are still like free agents and they're just like figuring out their contract. Like the Poles are not the guys that are dropping left and right. It's hard for midfielders to keep a spot, and then attackmen just like keep getting injured or they're old and retiring. So, and face-off seems to have quite a bit of turnover along with goalie. It's like defense is just young everywhere and everybody's kind of locked in. I think if he doesn't sign with the Archers, there's a possibility there's a trade in works with him and Glaze.
I was going to say there's two teams that technically have defensive openings. Obviously, one is more so a shift of one of your players, but you know, Atlas, we've seen them get freaky in the past with some things. And would it shock me if Pressler's like, hey, let me go get a veteran defensive anchor? Not at all.
Yes, it would actually literally shock me. He has Rex Road. He has Brett. And he has Gavin. They re-signed Kobe Smith.
I don't know if he was technically a free agent. He was not. So he's still on the roster.
Yeah. Kobe Smith. What they need to do is maybe draft another Pole if they want to, and I would be more so aimed at an LSM. Because they gave up Craig Chick, right?
Craig Chick is with the Cannons.
That's what I thought, yeah. I would rotate Maker back to his traditional position as a closed D and then draft an LSM or sign one. But if I'm Atlas, I'm not going to get a Pole. When you drafted Poles at 1 and 3 last year, two of the best cover guys as far as the young ones. Like when we're looking at like the youngest Poles last like 2 or 3 years, those two are probably the best cover guys in the draft. Maybe the only other person I could say is probably Owen Grant. I think Owen Grant has been phenomenal when he has played in the PLL. But yeah, I think you put those two at their natural position where they're comfortable and you see their defense immediately get better. Rex Road is already a great cover guy as is. The only advantage to pulling in McMahon is having someone who can kind of quarterback. I don't think they really have a quarterback now without Tucker. But I think Rex Road is smart enough to be in a quarterback position, especially when he plays a lot of X already. So that there's just some shifting there, but I don't really see them going to get a Pole with who they have at that position already. If I don't see McMahon in an Archer's jersey, he's either retired or he's traded with, in my opinion, Glaze, because I think they're very similar players. So you're trading for the same thing, just a different person with a different mindset and skill set, but they're coming in to do the same job. So it doesn't change too much of what you have going on around them.
Looking at some other names here that kind of stand out. Max Adler is an interesting case. Didn't play at all last year. Has not played this NLL season. Took the NLL season off. Our boy Hutton Jackson talked about it a little bit. He tweeted, Max Adler kind of makes sense for the Water Dogs. Zach Tucci goes to the Cannons on a free agent deal. And now with the inability to put Poles at the face-off stripe, I would love to see Max Adler in a Water Dogs uni. I think it makes a lot of sense as like the veteran to bring him in, someone that knows the position, has won at that position, and has won in this league, and has won at the professional field level. And then that also allows you to sift through your draft board and not feel as pressured to use an earlier on pick on a faceoff guy. But I think if the Water Dogs can sign Adler to, say, a 1-year deal, you go draft a guy in the entry draft, you probably bring a veteran in camp. I like the idea of Max Adler on the Water Dogs. How do you feel about Ads kind of getting back into the swing of things after taking 2023 off?
I don't hate it. I think he might have, a little bit of an adjustment period getting back into the swing of things as the lacrosse player, as a face-off guy, the cadence, how fast things are. But I think he'll be okay. He's been doing it for quite a bit of time. So I don't see him having a problem with that. But there are some solid face-off guys in the draft too. So it's just going to be a matter of, do they want to sign someone who's established, knows what's going on, and probably have to pay him a little bit more money? Or do they want to go with a guy right out of the draft and look to get the recent success we've seen other teams have with face-off guys coming out of the draft?
Another big name from those Carolina Chaos boys is our boy, Chase Strawser. Has not signed yet. He's kind of the last member of the Chaotic Bandits to still have a decision looming. I feel like he makes a ton of sense to head back to Chaos. How do you see things with Chase and his potential free agency looming to this point in the offseason?
I don't know if that they're going to get broken up at some point. Like, as more talent comes in, there's no way they can keep that team together. That's like my piece on that. I don't want to see them get split up at all because I think they're phenomenal together. And I think that's part of what makes Chaos who they are. But the talent, even just this year, the talent coming in is insane. And it's going to keep being good or getting better as the years go on. So there's only going to be so much space for these guys as the talent gets better and the years go on. But wouldn't be a bad spot if he came to the Redwoods.
I've seen a lot of people talk about that too.
He has that speed element that granted, Alex Simmons is coming over, but we haven't seen Alex Simmons on a PLL field. So we don't know what his speed is going to translate like on the PLL field. So as of right now, the Woods have kind of lost that speed factor in not having Jules.
Right.
Chase would immediately come in and change that. But he also has that aggressive mentality when he dodges speed wise. Like, he's fast and he's aggressive rather than being fast and elusive. He's coming full speed right through the middle. If you're going to hit him, he doesn't care because he's going to score. Whereas Jules and Sims kind of have the speed down the outside looking to get hands free kind of speed. Both could be really well together. Both could be really well separate. But I don't hate the idea of Chase coming over and putting on the green and yellow.
Yeah, it would be an interesting breakup of the Chaotic Bandits. But I think Chase, and you add in the mix of John Grant Jr. there too. And obviously Chase having his box background and all of that. I think that makes a lot of sense. But I do think inevitably Chase ends up back with Chaos, probably on a 1-year deal. Because who's to say, some of the guys that Chaos signed in free agency make the team out of camp. There's going to be a lot of camp battles, I think, with Chaos in late May. So we'll see how that all plays itself out. The next one, Connor Farrell. Now, I don't want to Brian Windhorst meme everybody here, but I'm gonna Brian Windhorst meme everyone, DJ. So I'm gonna have everybody grab their 2 pointer fingers and put them up. Now, why would they do that? Because as I was sifting through the social medias, you know how the PLL homecoming merch capsules and everything were launched. Connor Farrell was the one for the Outlaws. Now, as a free agent, why would they have a free agent saying the new name and promoting the new merch if they didn't intend on bringing him back for at least a year?
My thing with that is, didn't he already have the merch deal for that team? It's him and Wiz. But I'm not even sure if Wiz has a merch deal.
Well, I'm just saying it was like for the PLL shop with like the homecoming collection.
Yeah, I'm aware. But like, remember like the whole thing with Miles, like the throwback.
Oh,
and
yeah.
everything? I think Connor has that same thing going with Outlaws now. Excuse me. So it's kind of just like that piece where they're like, he's the guy for this team. And since he's not, like, sure, he's not like, you know, assigned to that team at the moment, he's also not signed to anyone else. So I think they kind of just went, it's fine because we're not attaching him to another team. We're still attaching him to the team that he's always been attached to. I think it just kind of becomes one of those funny things if he ends up signing somewhere else.
And to be fair, to put it in perspective too, Redwoods were doing it with Ryder. So not connecting too many dots, but there is a little Pepe Sylvia, Brian Windhorsty vibes that potentially Connor Farrell is back with the Outlaws, formerly known as Chrome. I can confirm, because I saw it on his Instagram, and we totally forgot to talk about this. Jesse King is playing Summer Box in 2024, so he will not be with the Outlaws in 2024. Bummer for us that we won't get to see the boy, but you know, obviously gets to be closer to home and everything for him. But can ultimately confirm that Jesse King will not be a member of the Denver Outlaws in 2024.
Which I was kind of looking forward to. Man, because didn't he come back for like a few games last year?
Came back for a bunch of games last year. I think
Yeah.
his first game was, I'll pull it up right here.
We made a big deal out of that. We made a huge deal about him coming back, which I was excited for. And me as a Roughnecks fan, I love seeing my Roughnecks playing lacrosse at any point in the year.
Played in 6 games last year.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be a huge loss for them in the midfield. But with this draft, they may be able to get someone just, let me not be disrespectful, someone who's really good.
A younger version. I mean, Jesse's still very talented, but he is 31.
Mm-hmm.
And an Outlaws team that is looking to find an identity probably wants to just supply their roster with youth talent from this draft.
Which is the perfect time to do it. These next couple drafts are going to be loaded as COVID years are coming to an end. Like, a lot of guys who spent a quality amount of time in college are coming out. So they're better than they have been in the draft, coming out of the draft right away.
Your next big name free agents that have not been signed yet, I'll couple these two together since they're on the same team. Eddie Glazner and John Sexton. No commotion about either of them whatsoever from the PLL Free Agency rumor mill. What do you think about the Redwoods duo there?
I think it's almost a no-brainer that what's his face? Glaze gets re-signed.
Mm-hmm.
I think the question here is, does Sexton come back, or are they looking to go in a different direction with LSM? They seem to have liked Owen Grant running LSM last year, even though he wasn't really running LSM in college at all. I just don't know where their mindset is with that. I kind of already touched on the Glaze piece. I think he either re-signs with the Woods or he's getting shipped to Utah and getting traded for Matt McMahon. So it's kind of just a waiting game with the both of them. I think John Sexton has a little bit better chances of being re-signed. But I'm praying that both of them are wearing green and yellow come June.
And the last one, the big one, the only player to have won the award for his position, the LSM of the year, Michael Earhart.
I mean, I think I remember telling you when they lost their last game that he was done.
We were
Right-
both
right
kind of
there.
sitting next to each other and hitting each other on the thigh, like, bro.
Bro's retired. Bro's done. He's done. The R word is coming. He's retiring. And I think as the season continues to loom closer with no deal for him, that it's more likely that we get a retirement post from the PLL and the Maryland Whipsnakes and himself. The more days that go by, the more I feel like that post is just being cultivated. They're not working on a deal. They're working on that post so that it sounds right for everyone. Like, I just don't see him coming back. But if he does, he's going to be Earhart.
It would be the most.
He's only going to be in a Maryland Whipsnakes jersey, too.
It would be the most Brody Merrill LSM of the Year award winner thing to do if Michael Earhart retired and then sees where the Whipsnakes are in the standings halfway through the season and then unretires.
Yeah. Speaking of, you know what? You owe me an apology because you dogged me for not knowing that Brody had retired. And then I said, you know what? He's going to come back because he's got to win himself an NLL championship before he's done. And look at where we are. You were looking at me like I was crazy. And look at where we are.
Bro, that hit me like the stone cold. I forgot we haven't talked about that because it happened after we recorded, I think.
Yeah, it did.
The fact that I knew that was coming, but didn't act on it because I wasn't 110% sure, and then woke up to everyone tweeting about it, I was like, son of a bitch. Because we were tipped off to this news at like 2 a.m. Eastern time.
Which
and I was
means
like, God damn it.
We could have broke some real breaking news.
Brody Merrill being back is just insane.
It's what we need. It's what we've always needed. Like I thought he was going to be at the beginning of the year.
Does it work like we'll have to ask our pals over at the Seals if it works this way since we're buddies now. Like when they lifted his jersey into the rafters, was it in a glass case and then they broke it open in case of emergency and then they brought jersey down from rafters because they retired his jersey number this season.
So I mean, that doesn't mean he can't wear it, right?
Oh, I know. It's just very funny that like this season it goes up and now it's back down on the floor.
I just think he'd be looking at it like,
who's that good on me?
Who's that guy up there, man? He must have been pretty good. Oh, wait. I'm still pretty good. I'm right here. Doing it again.
Do we just actively place a bet on the Seals to win the championship? Because like that's some like storybook ending type shit for Brody.
I mean, hey, I told you he wasn't done until he got himself a chip.
It's the only thing he doesn't have. Because technically he's got a PLL championship by being an assistant coach for the freaking Boston Cannons in the Champ Series.
You are right. But my question is, you got one of them no sweat bets?
I might have to sift through and
that's what you need to be looking at is some no sweats right now. A no sweat on this would be perfect, big dog.
Facts.
Because yeah, you should
see how everything is shaken out for the Seals, because who knows. But that's the PLL free agency roundup. We'll do some quick hits here to talk the college game with Portal Jones. It's brought to you by Tomahawk Shades, the best small batch eyewear in the game. From sunglasses to blue light glasses to prescription lenses, They've got you covered, and one of their owners was just on Good Morning Football this week. Chris Hogan, ever heard of him? Tomahawk Shades. It is truly like the best eyewear, comfortable, like feel to it for a fraction of the big eyewear companies, and it is better looking, better quality, and you're gonna get a pair of sunglasses for like $30 as compared to $300. Who wouldn't do that? Go to tomahawkshades.com or download the Tomahawk Shades app in the App Store or Google Play Store. And when you go to checkout, use our code USP for 25% off your order. That's code USP at tomahawkshades.com or in the Tomahawk Shades app for 25% off your order. Shout out to Tomahawk Shades for sponsoring the pod. They've been with us now, Teach, for 4 years. 4-year Annie just came up this week. Shout out to Tomahawk Shades, one of our longest running partners.
My 3-year Annie's coming up.
Hell yeah.
Which is crazy to think about.
Insane.
Like this all started with just a drink. No.
I knew you were going to say that.
I mean, that's how everything starts, right? Including college lacrosse. It all starts with kids having a dream, wanting to play for maybe their favorite college or some college down the road, one that's halfway across the world, one that they're not going to get into, like me, wanting to play for Michigan. I'm just not smart enough. That's it. They want really smart people down there. We're going to jump into where I did end up playing. D3 ball. Colorado College taking down Hope, which makes me a happy MIAA man because I dislike everybody else in the conference. Go Dogs. But try and beat someone 17-1, and I need someone to check on Centenary in LA. Maybe that's Louisiana. It don't matter what state. Check on them because that's not good. Salisbury staying undefeated over Stevenson, 18-8. Cabrini grabs another dub over the weekend. Albion lost to Illinois Wesleyan 15-8. Alma beats Anderson 15-7. Calvin beat Benedictine 12-8. I don't know what's going on in our conference. Huge win for the Polar Bears over John Carroll 8-5 in their first conference matchup. That was nice for them. I've always not been able to pronounce their full name, so I will not say it. RPI getting a huge overtime dub over RIT 10-9, which was probably game of the weekend. Honestly, I got to watch a few clips of that and sat down and watched probably like 10 minutes of that game. Fantastic. Hope bounces back as they're on spring break, playing 2 games out of the state. They beat Carthage 11-6. St. Vincent over Lebanon Valley 11-10. Shout out Diggs. Kalamazoo College loses to Aurora 15-9. Adrian lost to Dubuque 10-9. I watched that game. My blood boiled watching that game because we just tossed it away. Just yanked the thing out of our own hands. And then we started coming back, and the fourth quarter was just pure electricity. And then we turned it over with like a minute left, and I was like, this is not how we're going to lose this game. And that is 1,000% how we lost that game. So frustrating. But I really do like the way the Dogs look this year, and they're starting to really put it together. So I think we have a solid chance at our conference tourney this year. Grove City over York 11-9. And huge whoa. Earlham College beat LaRoche 29-1.
Sheesh.
Moving on, Christopher Newport 11-9 over Lynchburg. I just don't know what else to say. I'm just checking to see if Union
Newport
over
shut up Max Wayne ?
Right. Union over Clarkson 15-10 on Sunday. Trine gets another dub 26-3 over Spalding. I don't think SUNY Potsdam. Shout out Coach Wetzel. That's my coach down at Adrian. They come out with a huge dub over SUNY Owenetta 21-9 and their dub there. Look, there's another Salisbury game this week that I want to catch. Get the score out for. Oh, no, not Salisbury. That's right. It was Tufts. Tufts absolutely smacked Union around 24-5 in a top 10 battle that just wasn't even close. Babson takes down Bowdoin 13-6, which that one was a key game to watch over the weekend as well. Looking at what's coming up for the weekend, I really just want to find all the good stuff. Carthage plays Albion this weekend. North Central taking on Calvin. Vassar's got RIT. I really wish they would have just put these in like alphabetical order. Ranked order. Oh, Carroll, Wisconsin's taking on my Bulldogs at Docking Stadium. Salisbury's got Keene this weekend. RPI is playing Ithaca. Kalamazoo plays Transylvania. Union plays St. Lawrence. And that pretty much wraps it up for D3. There's not much going on. Nothing going on Sunday, D3, for Easter. Getting back into the D2 mix. There's like nothing going on D2, which is normal. Florida Tech over St. Leo, 10-8. Got one of my buddies down there playing. Mercyhurst wins 16-5 over Walsh. And I will say Mercyhurst has looked good to start the year this year, looking to get back to that championship game and hopefully win it this time around. Delphi 21-6 over St. Michael's. Limestone over Newberry 2012. Lenore Rhine over Wingate 12-7. Tampa wins over the weekend 16-11 over Rollins. St. Thomas Aquinas wins one over Duville 9-2. But D2 is as simple as it's getting right now. Not a lot of back and forth going there. I'm not even going to look at what they have coming up this weekend. We'll just touch on that next week. We'll start with what we saw earlier today. As we're on Wednesday, Duke outlasts Boston U 11-10. VMI ends up beating the Mount 12-8. Jacksonville over Cleveland State 18-6. And Canisius pulls out a 1-point dub over Siena 13-12. But looking back at this weekend, down goes number one again. Number one is a curse this year. So Notre Dame, look out this weekend against Hughes. Boston U takes down Army 14-9 on Friday night last weekend. Cornell takes down Yale 18-15 in a tight game. Princeton is the best of their rival in Harvard 14-11. Michigan, hail to the goddamn victors. Not one, not two, but say it with me, 3 times in a row. Them boys in blue over the Terps, 12-11. So I'm high-key extremely nervous for Big Ten playoffs later this year if we happen to run into Maryland. I don't think they're going to be happy about dropping 3 to the Wolverines in a row. Mount grabbed a win over Wagner, 8-7. High Point takes down North Carolina, 12-11. They seem to always beat another team from North Carolina that they supposedly shouldn't beat every year. This year was North Carolina. Virginia over Drexel 14-4, handled that one easily. Air Force taking down Lindenwood 15-3. Utah absolutely slaughters Detroit Mercy 21-9. St. Joe's putting a couple wins together in a row as they get an OT dub over Providence. Loyola Maryland back in the win column along with Townsend. St. John's gets one over Lemoyne. NJIT takes a second loss in a row now as they lost to Binghamton 17-12. LIU gets a win on the year as they win in overtime over Siena 12-11. And Cuse takes down Hobart in their battle for the state of New York over there 13-7. Georgetown over Richmond 14-8. Sunday, there was some good Big Ten lacrosse on. Duke and Denver played down in Maryland. I think that game was in. Duke ends up coming out on top 11-7 in what was a very tight and very hard-fought game. Penn State over Ohio State 12-9, and John Hop over Rutgers 13-8. Yale beat Lemoyne yesterday 21-10 handily. Looking at the weekend coming up, Saturday is where all the fun is happening. Harvard, who has played great to start the year so far, has an uphill battle with Virginia. Utah and Jacksonville will be a great game. Army and North Carolina, as they're both looking to bounce back from the week before. Obviously, Cuse Notre Dame in South Bend, where I'll be boots on the ground. If you are there, let me know. We can take pictures, get some content, all kinds of stuff. I'm here for it. That game should be absolutely electric. Denver, Villanova, Georgetown, Providence, High Point, St. Joe, all going to be on Saturday. Michigan plays John Hop on Saturday. Ohio State plays Rutgers on Saturday. Marquette and St. John's should be a decent game as well. And Sunday, we get a little bit of Easter lacrosse as Maryland and Penn State will battle, and Air Force and Cleveland State will go at it as well. Syracuse and Cornell on Tuesday. I'm actually really pumped for that one. That's normally a really good game. And then that's it for the week. I think it's a little bit slower of a week with the holidays. Some teams probably taking it off to allow people to get with the fam, but it's buzzing in the college world right now. And I'm excited, in a couple of weeks to really start talking about the draft and who's going to be going where.
Yeah, it's going to be a ton of fun. Obviously, our draft extravaganza will be happening on May 7th. Chase will be part of it. Looking forward to building out that roster for sure. Make sure you guys are following us on the socials at OTB LaxPod, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads. Follow Chase on Twitter and Instagram at the PLL Pipeline. Follow Deej on Twitter at SCS_NextGreat. Follow me at KBIZZL311. Follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/OTB LaxPod. Subscribe to the goddamn pod on Apple, Spotify. Leave a 5-star review. It really does go a long way for helping the show continue to grow. Helps us look good to Chase, and makes his decision that much more enriching, knowing that you guys are subscribing to the goddamn pod on Apple, Spotify, and of course, subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel, youtube.com/@UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia. That's where you get full video episodes of this show every single week, full video episodes of every show on our network, clips, shorts, live streams, everything possible. It's on the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel, youtube.com/@UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia, and subscribe to the OTB YouTube channel, youtube.com/@OTB LaxPod. Get your merch at phiapparel.co, code underground, 10% off your merch orders. And of course, download that PLL app. Download the PLL app. Redeem code section, code OTB pod. Get you 500 XP in the PLL app. Hopefully that's just the beginning for us. It's been running since Champ Series, and as far as we know, that code is still active. So keep using it. Be a friend, tell a friend. Download the PLL app. Code OTB pod in the redeem code section. You get 500 XP on your account. Easy 500. Easy. It's easy.
Maybe you'll be able to catch me who's at cracks knuckles level 34.
Bang. Or maybe you'll catch me who's at level 35.
Okay, I lost my app for like a week because I got a new phone. So
I was also at Champ Series.
that's the only reason. Yeah, that's really what it is. That Champ Series QR code scan.
Got the bumps.
Which I'm mad you didn't ask me for my login so you could do it yourself.
See, the thing is, I didn't remember my own login. I wasn't trying to lose that.
Bro, I feel. I feel.
But this has been a Stone Cold Wide episode number 316 of the award-nominated Wide, honorably mentioned What? Number 9 NCAA ranked. What? And of course, viewable on YouTube. What? And home to the PLL Pipeline. What? Episode of the Outside the Box podcast, the official lacrosse podcast on the Underground Sports Philadelphia Podcast Network. For Deej, for Chase, I'm KB. Subscribe to the goddamn pod. Enjoy this weekend of lacrosse. Love to Maryland. And we'll catch you guys next week. Peace.
Lot.